Welcome to White Space. We're back after quite a busy summer. We've all been away, and let's talk about that first. Max, you've been to Budapest.
Yes. Budapest was fine. I was a little bit ill at the moment, so sorry guys who I've met in Budapest if I was not my usual self. But yeah, Apache Software Foundation, very interesting organization, pretty much runs on enthusiasm because...
And it manages pretty much all the major open source projects that we're interested in. Maybe I'm exaggerating there.
Yeah. Whatever's not sort of like hogged by the Linux Foundation. But interestingly, it's over 270 projects they have, the top level projects. So that's official, people are using them. They're sort of like used in business. And their annual budget stands at $1 million.
For 270 projects? Have you done the sums?
Yeah. It works out as something like, I think it was 2,000, I have a number, about $5,000 per project per year.
And these are projects like Hadoop?
Yes, or Spark, or Tomcat, or the Apache web server, that the internet runs on. So yeah, not a lot of money for very, very important stuff.
How can they afford to get to Budapest?
I don't know, but they sort of like, even the process of getting there was interesting, because they sort of politely asked, can we put you with a budget carrier? And in hindsight, that's like, hell yeah, you have no money.
They push you by pigeon.
Excellent. Apache Soft, very good value. Okay, and Bill, you've been touring the data centers of Europe.
Peter, I have. I started in Aberdeen with Bright Solid. That was really interesting. Bright Solid is, they've now got 2 tier 3 data centers. They're owned by the company which is better known for the Beano and the Dandy.
Right.
And also a Scottish publication that my mother loved called the Scottish Sunday Post, which used to have the highest readership of any publication in the world. In other words, the highest number of people in Scotland read it. 70% of the publication read it every single Sunday. Anyway, they have obviously diversified into data centers. They have 2 really, what was particularly interested in the Aberdeen data center was the cooling system, which is really eco-freeze, which is really quite innovative. They've also, quite interestingly, they've got a really good vision. The Scottish government has been determined to try and loosen the grip of the big systems integrators who've traditionally just got all the big government contracts, and there are more SMEs now who are going into the cloud. So what Bright Solid are doing is providing cloud provision for SMEs, and they are going to become a huge system. Going to become a very efficient systems integrator over the next few years. Somebody to watch quite carefully, I think. Then I was on to an even smaller country, Luxembourg. Which has the highest number of tier 4 data centers of anywhere else in Europe. And what they're trying to do is get all the big enterprise work which goes into London, Frankfurt, and Amsterdam at the moment. Not so much the financial work, because the latency, I'm not sure they can still beat the latency from London or Frankfurt. But with tier 4, really impressive. The new data center I went to see, very, very, very impressive. And the company's interesting because it's owned by the government, but run by private enterprise. So, and they're trying to just get big American companies to come into Europe and look at Luxembourg. So good luck to them. Interesting, friendly people.
Right.
Are they trying to do the same thing Switzerland is trying to do in terms of like, we're ultra reliable, because we're big, because we're, neutral in the middle of Europe, we're not involved with any of the political shizzle, so...
Absolutely, exactly, and they've made a big point over the years of stability. It's a very stable government. It's had coalition government since the Second World War. So, and also quite interesting, it's not the sort of ping-pong sort of politics you get elsewhere in Europe where another government comes in and changes things. They actually make a point of not changing when the new government comes in. They go, oh no, we're not. That's true, actually.
Yes.
A big point.
Right.
So interesting. Oh, good luck to them.
Data center people like stability.
Yes.
Okay, and I went to Singapore for Singapore Data Center Week, a government-sponsored celebration of all things data center and the role of data centers in making Singapore into an Asian hub. And 2 days of that was our Southeast Asia event, which was, as usual, a lot of discussion and thinking going on about data centers. And some of the more interesting stuff you'll see in the next issue of our magazine, which is due out on Monday. We were looking particularly at the risks involved in data centers and how that might be improved on. So meanwhile, what else has been going on? Max, you've heard about a recycled data center of some interest, haven't you?
Oh yeah, do you mean Newfoundland?
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, Canadians. There's on the island of Newfoundland since the World War II. There was an American air base, and lots of bunkers in all the different places. You know, used to store ammunition, and there's a big underground water storage facility. And now there's a company. Now, if I could just remember how the company was called. Tesla Logistics. Oh, how could I forget? Yes. So the company named after the sort of geek icon Nikola Tesla. And they've started building there already. And at first they take it bunker by bunker. So they're saying, you know, like they're great, they're dry, they're clean, they're sort of like 4-foot reinforced concrete walls. And these guys, I mean, these things were essentially built to withstand, you know, actual attacks. So they're going to put a lot of servers in there. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, good idea.
They're also, the government of Newfoundland has been talking about putting a big wind farm on the island for the past 10 years. And now they're hoping they will actually do it, and they're going to have renewable power as well.
Good ideas.
Yes. Something else that caught our attention this week, and this is just because I loved the concept, is Amazon Snowball. Amazon Snowball was announced yesterday. It's essentially a big shockproof, weatherproof case of hard drives, self-powered with an e-ink screen. And the idea is when you have 50 terabytes of data, you're not gonna send it down the wire because it's gonna be expensive and it's just gonna take so much time. It's much easier to upload this data to this box and send this box in the post using your preferred postal courier. And yeah, you just literally, you don't even have to attach a label. You just take the box, plug it in, get the data in, data's encrypted, get the box to your driver, and bam, it goes off to Amazon. And costs just $200 to rent one of these boxes. And yeah, it's an interesting sort of low-tech solution to a high-tech problem.
Yes, there's a long, very old quote in the industry. It takes a lot to beat the bandwidth of a truck full of tapes. And this is more or less the same thing.
Absolutely, yes.
Max, you've covered probably the biggest long-term story this week.
Yes, the safe harbor agreement. So for years, the US and Europe had this agreement where Europe had very strict data protection laws, US not so much, but Europeans were kind of like, oh yeah, well, if you signed up to this code and you self-certify and you tell us that you promise on your mother's grave that the data is going to be safe, we're going to believe you. However, there was an activist from Austria who sued Facebook over the fact that they provided the data of their users, including him, to the NSA. And on the basis of that, so the case was filed in Dublin, where Facebook is headquartered in Europe, and it went all the way to the European Central Court of Justice. And the court has decided that Safe Harbor is actually invalid because nobody in the US can guarantee that it's going to be safe from the NSA. That's essentially it. It's invalid effective immediately, and now a lot of American companies are going to have to decide how they want to move forward. Either have data centers in Europe or have different sort of case-by-case agreements when they try to export European data to the US.
Okay, Interxion in Paris has a data center that is in court over noise. It's had complaints from the neighbours.
It was playing his CDs too loud.
It's probably the cooling systems that are too noisy, and possibly the diesel generators that it has for backup and must use occasionally. The the data centre's been there for a couple of years, it got planning permission, but local residents are wanting that taken away retrospectively because they say it's noisy and it's dangerous. They also don't like the fact that it's using a lot of electricity and has backup diesels with a big tank of diesel fuel. It's something like 10 metres from houses. Houses are just across the road from it, apparently. You know, it's probably no more dangerous than a lot of other things that might be there. So there may be other things involved in this protest, but we shall be watching that one. Okay, so we might have an Italian SuperNAP soon. In fact, we will. Construction has already begun on a data centre near Milan by SuperNAP International, the international wing of Switch, which has the giant SuperNAP data centres in Nevada. They've got one in Reno, one in Las Vegas, and they reckon, the biggest in the world, and there's one coming to Italy. And finally, the biggest merger ever in the tech space, if it happens, is Dell wanting to buy EMC. Okay,
Why?
EMC is twice as big as Dell. Dell has recently gone private in order to stop itself being broken up by investors. EMC is similarly struggling not to be broken up. But Michael Dell wants to turn Dell into a company that is not just about PCs, that's big, it's got servers, networking and services,
They have all these things. How much do you need, Michael Dell?
Well, we're going to have to watch this one, but you know, Dell already owes 12 billion. It's going to have to borrow 40 billion more, it says here, and take partners with other people like possibly Microsoft that helped it go private, in order to make up the possible purchase price of like $50 to $60 billion for EMC. It might have to spin off VMware, which is something people have been talking about for a long while.
Because that's what the activist investors within EMC, the moment, are saying, aren't they? Spin off VMware.
Yeah.
And it seems strange to then for somebody else to then buy the whole company. But I
Possibly.
suppose if there's a long-term deep strategy, keep that, spin it off, because that VMware itself must be worth quite a lot.
And all this comes just a month or so after Dell announced a 125 billion plan, backed by, well, I'm not sure what money, to expand into China, taking partners with Kingsoft. So interesting stuff here. We shall have to see what comes of it, but it just dropped on our desk this morning. That's all for Whitespace this week, and we're glad to be back. Watch out for the magazine next week, and we'll see you in the next episode.
And it's all containers, right?
Don't think so, no.
Modules?
No. You might want to edit that bit out.
Okay.